On Mob Talk tonight, more fallout from our exclusive undercover video of mob boss Joe Ligambi in a heated discussion with mob associate bent finger Lou Monacello.
Fox 29's Dave Stratweiser and the Inquirer's George Anastasia on why investigators want a closer look at that tape.
Welcome to Mob Talk. I'm Dave Stratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
George, it seems our undercover video of mob boss Joe Ligambi chewing out mob associate bent finger Lou Monacello and that little cameo appearance by Anthony Staino caused quite a stir in South Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a mob boss on film doing anything, it's of interest. And this has potential to be something that law enforcement would like to get their hands on because it establishes relationships. Separate and apart from everything else, it shows relationships.
George, let's start with my sources are telling me both the State Attorney General's office and the FBI are now interested in this tape. They may subpoena Fox News for the tape. Why would investigators be interested in that tape?
Well, one, there's 3 individuals on that tape who are people of interest in terms of the ongoing racketeering investigation. Number 2, you see them in action. We don't know what they said, what they were doing, but clearly they were interacting. And you know, somewhere down the road, if law enforcement has this tape and there's a trial, these guys can't deny, no, I don't know him. Here they are together, and there's no way to deny the association that establishes. Separate and apart from that, I mean, I remember a famous tape that was taken down on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. By happenstance, a security guard caught Nick Caramandi talking to Phil Leonetti and Nicky Scarfo. 3 or 4 years later, Caramandi becomes an informant, talks about that meeting, and now they've got a tape to back it up. So you don't know where this would fit into the general scheme of things, but anytime you get these guys on tape, you want that because you don't know what you can build off of that.
Specifically, bent finger Lou Monacello has a trial coming up. It's been delayed a couple of weeks for other issues, but that's coming up pretty soon. And they're going to want to establish a relationship between Joe Ligambi, the boss of the mob, and him, and that does it right on tape.
Well, sure. I mean, the whole issue with Monacello is he's charged with running a gambling operation for George Borghese, the jailed mobster, who's the nephew of Joe Ligambi. Now, it's going to be difficult for Monacello to say, I don't have any mob connections, if that tape is available to be played for a jury. Because here you are meeting with the underboss or the capo, Staino, a hug and a kiss, and then here you are in an animated discussion with the mob boss, Joe Ligambi, for 10, 15 minutes. So you can't deny any kind of association when you got that kind of tape.
All right, now let's talk about the ag factor, the aggravation factor for Joe Ligambi. He does not like the media to begin with. He does not like to be caught on tape, and he certainly doesn't want to be caught on tape in that mode.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's going back into the shadows, very much the Angelo Bruno mode. You know, make money, don't make headlines, don't call attention to yourself. And here he is calling attention to himself by his own actions. I mean, he's got to be kicking himself for being out on his own porch in broad daylight doing what he did. That's the kind of conversation you have in a car, in a clubhouse, inside somewhere. You don't have that conversation out in public. Yeah. And it was obviously an animated conversation. Obviously he was upset, and it all came out.
We talked about this a little bit last week. The aggravation factor for Marty Angelina goes up a little bit here on a couple of levels. Anthony Staino clearly gives Monacello a hug and a kiss on the cheek in the middle of the street. He's a captain, could be the underboss, could be the underboss in waiting. And then you have this 20-minute conversation between Monacello and Joe Ligambi, and that's got to drive Marty Angelina nuts.
Yeah, I mean, whatever Staino's rank is, underboss or capo, Staino is Ligambi's guy. He's his number 1 guy. He's his go-to guy. And here's that greeting on the street, a sign of respect and a relationship. That's established, number 1. Number 2, Angelina knows that Monacello at one point was plotting to kill him, and another point was plotting to have him beaten up. I mean, that's the charges Monacello is facing in Conroe Police Court. So how does it look for the hierarchy of the organization to be associating with a guy who was going to kill the alleged underboss? It doesn't make any sense at all in terms of the mob protocol.
All right, George, let's switch it up a little bit. We'll change gears. On trial this week in court, Philadelphia police officer, former Philadelphia police officer Ricky Durham, charged by the feds with helping tip off drug dealer Ace Capone about a year and a half ago before the ATF swooped in and sealed that case.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it was a day-and-a-half trial, and the essence of the case is this. Ricky Durham is part of a task force. He's being debriefed about a raid that's about to take place and realizes that one of the locations is Ace Capone's home, and Ace Capone's girlfriend is the sister of Ricky Durham's longtime friend, Pooh Richardson. Asia Richardson's living with Coles. That house is about to be raided. Now, as an individual, do you call your longtime friend and say, hey, your sister's got a problem? Or as a law enforcement officer, do you just go about the business of conducting the raid? Ricky Durham decided to call his lifelong friend and say, your sister's got a problem. Now, was it wrong? Yeah, he admits it's an error in judgment, but was it criminal? That's what this case revolved around. A very short trial. Richardson testified about the phone calls, and the feds are saying basically this put the whole situation in jeopardy. Durham is saying through his attorney, I shouldn't have done it, but I did it, but it wasn't about tipping off a drug dealer. It was about trying to gather some information. I think in essence what he was really doing was giving his longtime friend, a man with whom he was the best man at his wedding, trying to give him a heads up, hey, your sister's got a problem.
All right, George, next week we're going to talk about a variety of things, but we might talk a little bit about those video poker machines that were scooped up by the State Attorney General's office and the Pennsylvania State Police last week. We're getting a little more info on the amount of money they were making and who they belong to.
Yeah, I mean, we've always known it's a big money revenue generator for the mob, and I think we're starting to hear the names of some of the mobsters who are benefiting from this distribution network, and that's what that case is really all about.
Okay, that's Mob Talk for this week. We'll see you next week.